Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to, well, unearth some surprising truths from some really fascinating sources.
That's the plan.
Today, we're tackling a huge concept, heaven. But maybe not the heaven you're expecting. We're looking at it through the lens of thousands of near-death experiences, NDE, and how these reports seem to radically reframe what might await us. Our mission, really, is to peel back those layers. See how these real-world accounts challenge that, traditional praise forever model, and look at the research behind it. We're drawing a lot from two pretty extraordinary books, Unveiling the Afterlife, you can find it on Amazon, all formats.
Good one.
And also a chapter from its follow-up, Unveiled, the greatest discovery of human history, proof that we are immortal. Heavy stuff.
It is, and it's really important to frame this, for you listening. These books offer deep insights, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the whole topic of the afterlife, NDEs,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly vast.
Yeah.
Complex. So what we're diving into today represents one specific, fascinating view. It's well-researched, drawing from this massive body of NDE work that honestly hasn't really been fully pulled together yet.
Not aggregated, yeah.
Exactly. The author of these books, he's meticulously drawing on that research, on thousands of individual NDE reports to build these conclusions.
Okay, so let's unpack this. When we talk traditional heaven, what's the usual picture, and what's that big unanswered question the source material points out?
Well, the common idea, right, is this place where humans exist with God, a supreme being, and the main activity, constant praise for eternity.
the hymns, the harps.
Kind of. But the source material really zeroes in on a key question. Okay, if we're there forever, what else are we actually doing besides singing praises? And that's a question traditional religion often, well, it doesn't seem to have a solid answer for.
That's a really interesting angle, and the source suggests this whole needing praise thing might have roots. Well, less divine and more earthly.
Precisely. I mean, think about it historically. Kings, emperors, they demanded constant praise, right? Adulation.
Yeah, loyalty oaths, that sort of thing.
Exactly. So in that context, praise can look like a tool, a form of control. Keep everyone focused on the authority, not on, say, their own journey or questions.
Right.
And there's a logical sticking point too, isn't there? Why would a perfect, all-powerful being need praise from creations? It feels contradictory.
It does.
Early religions often had gods who, needed offerings, needed worship to maintain power or whatever. And even with monotheism, sometimes that needy deity idea kind of lingered, even if it didn't quite make logical sense anymore.
So this traditional view leads to what the source calls the empty heaven problem. Endless praise starts sounding less like bliss and more like, well, a bit of a drag, eternally speaking.
A cosmic chore, yeah. And that's exactly where the NDE accounts offer such a striking contrast, a completely different vibe.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting.
Like,
Millions of people reporting these NDEs. What are they saying happens if it's not just passive worship?
oh, it's incredibly active, dynamic. It's a universe of meaningful engagement, not just sitting around.
Like what?
Consistently, people report visiting amazing places of learning. Centers, libraries filled with universal knowledge. And this isn't just one or two stories.
Right.
Dr. Bruce Grayson's research, for instance, highlights how common these descriptions of structured learning environments are. Really detailed accounts.
Wow. Learning centers.
And more. People talk about actively participating in planning future lives.
Their own lives.
Their own, yes, and sometimes even helping guide others, like being involved in the process. They describe doing creative things, contributing to cosmic evolution, working on specific projects or missions.
So real tasks. Purpose.
Exactly. And this idea of multiple levels, continuous progress, that shows up all the time. Jeff Long's NDERF database, the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, their cases frequently document these multiple levels of existence. It reinforces this picture of a dynamic, multi-dimensional reality, not just one static place.
So they're not just being there, they're doing. What about interacting with a divine presence? How does that compare?
Huge difference there, too. Instead of this image of a demanding figure needing praise, NDErs overwhelmingly describe experiencing pure, unconditional love.
Unconditional.
With absolutely no demand for worship attached. Communication is often described as two-way, a dialogue. It feels like a partnership, not servitude.
Partnership, not servitude. That's a big shift.
It is. And it's about understanding, not just blind faith. growth through experience, not staying stuck in one perfect, unchanging state. You see this reflect in why people say they chose to come back.
Ah, the return decision.
Yes, almost always. It's tied to unfinished business. Completed work, a purpose they still need to fulfill here. That implies the other side isn't static either. There's ongoing stuff happening.
That makes a lot of sense. And the social side, you mentioned collaboration.
Absolutely. It's profoundly communal, solitary at all. NDErs talk about working with other souls, teaching, mentoring relationships, group projects, shared mission.
And projects.
Sounds mundane, but yes. Dr. PMH Atwater's research specifically looks into these group connections. And the INDS case files that the International Association for Near-Death Studies, they have loads of examples of collaborative activities.
Okay.
Kenneth Ring's work also touches on these shared experiences, shared missions. It paints a picture of a vibrant, interconnected community, all focused on shared goals, growth, learning.
So just to kind of pull that together, this picture emerging from thousands of NDEs, it directly challenges that old view. It's active, not passive, purpose-driven, not praise-focused, growth-oriented, not static, collaborative, not just hierarchical.
That sums it up perfectly. It's a complete paradigm shift based on reported experience.
And the research backing this up is pretty extensive, you mentioned.
Oh, yes. It's not just anecdotes. We mentioned Dr. Greason on learning environments. Think about the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies. Their work consistently finds strong evidence pointing towards progression and purpose within these NDEs.
Progression and purpose.
Right. And for specific missions, NDErs often return with such clarity about what they need to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're literally shown work they need to complete, specific assignments almost. They get this sense of how their personal purpose fits into a bigger picture.
Wow.
And the personal growth aspect is compelling too. Descriptions of different developmental levels, understanding gained through life reviews, guidance from beings who seem more advanced. Dr. Raymond Moody, one of the pioneers, documented this kind of ongoing learning aspect decades ago.
It's striking how consistent it seems to be across different researchers and databases like NDRF and IND, as you mentioned.
It is. And one key observation the source material makes is that up to now, these research organizations haven't really focused on explicitly comparing these findings with religious dogma.
The NDErs themselves directly attacking or criticizing religion. How does that work?
Yeah, that's fascinating. The source calls it the power of incidental contradiction.
Incidental contradiction.
Right. The NDErs aren't setting out to debunk anything. They're just sharing what happened to them authentically. But in doing so, their descriptions naturally, organically, end up contradicting a lot of traditional teachings.
Just by telling their story.
Exactly. And the casualness of it is what makes it so powerful. They're not arguing, not trying to convince anyone of a theological point. They're just reporting. This is what I saw. This is what I did.
Makes sense.
There's no agenda perceived, so people listen differently.
It feels like a shift in focus. You know, traditional religion might emphasize judgment, worship, reward, punishment, divine authority. But the NDErs seem naturally focused on growth, learning, purpose, love, meaningful work, different priorities entirely.
Many NDErs remain spiritual, deeply so, but they often move away from rigid dogma. They'll describe these afterlife activities, learning, working on projects, helping others, without necessarily even realizing they're contradicting centuries of tradition. You hear things like, I was surprised to find myself working on projects, or I didn't expect to be learning so much.
There are these amazing libraries.
We're helping others understand their paths. These little phrases, these casual revelations, they build up. This is the impact of innocent observation, repeated thousands, millions of times. Truth emerging through shared experience, not imposed doctrine.
So the cumulative effect is huge. Millions of similar stories, no coordination, but these consistent themes just emerge, reshaping beliefs slowly, organically.
Right.
But that raises a question. If the contradictions are there, why don't more NDErs talk about them directly? Why not try to reconcile it more explicitly with, say, their religious upbringing?
That's a really good question, and the source suggests a few reasons. First, the experience itself is just profoundly transformative. You're flooded with love, knowledge, a sense of cosmic connection. Integrating that feeling, that understanding, into your daily life becomes the priority, not necessarily dissecting theological inconsistencies.
You're busy processing the core message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, many people do come from religious backgrounds. They might still hold those beliefs dear. Directly challenging core doctrines can feel threatening or disrespectful to their own faith journey or community, minimizing the contradictions rather than highlighting them.
trying to bridge the gap. And I suppose most aren't trained theologians either.
That's another key point. Most NDErs are ordinary people, not religious scholars. They might not fully grasp the depth of the doctrinal contradictions. Unpacking all that requires a certain kind of knowledge they just don't have. And finally, they really want to share the positive message. The core of the NDE is usually incredibly uplifting: love, peace, purpose, interconnectedness. That's what they're eager to communicate. That resonates more widely and feels more important than getting bogged down in doctrinal debates.
Focusing on the universal human experience part of it.
Precisely. So understanding all that helps explain why these incidental contradictions are so powerful. They land without direct confrontation, allowing the listener to connect the dots themselves.
It's a natural unfolding, not a forced argument.
Well put.
Okay, so wrapping this up. The core idea from these books, Unveiling the Afterlife and Unveiled, is really to look at NDE aspects researchers maybe haven't fully analyzed yet, especially how they bump up against common religious expectations. While traditional religion might promise an eternity focused on praise, NDErs consistently report something very different: dynamic, purposeful, growth-focused. And that consistency makes those older concepts, well, harder to hold on to without asking some serious questions.
It really does. And this emerging understanding, based on experience rather than just doctrine, it could genuinely reshape spiritual practices, what individual growth even means. The books lay out the evidence, the patterns.
The reader connect the dots.
Exactly. You, the listener, can draw your own conclusions about how this kind of natural testimony is slowly transforming beliefs, how truth seems to emerge from these shared human experiences. It doesn't mean NDErs reject everything about religion, by the way. Many find positive aspects, valuable teachings, but their experience adds a whole new dimension.
That's an important nuance.
It is.
So if this has sparked your interest, and how could it not, we definitely recommend getting hold of the full manuscripts. Unveiling the Afterlife and Unveiled, the greatest discovery of human history, proof that we are immortal. Dive into the full findings, the analysis, the case studies. Assess it all for yourself.
It's quite a journey, well worth exploring.
Definitely. So here's a final thought to leave you with. If our deepest purpose, as these experiences suggest, really is about continuous growth, learning, and meaningful contribution, how might that change the way you live your life starting today?